Hey, Joshua Hathaway here. We are the Human Thriving Project, and just wanted to share a really simple definition of regenerative. Because the Human Thriving Project is a project to really carefully distinguish between regenerative behavior and degenerative behavior. Regenerative behavior is systemically beneficial. It benefits the whole system. Regenerative behavior benefits everybody involved. It's a benefit to everybody involved, and the benefit is dispersed, right? So I want to talk about that in the simplest way in our human behavior, because degenerative behavior is systemically harmful. It's a behavior that harms the system rather than benefits the system in the long run. And so I really like this reframe because I think the word regenerative captures an essence of what we're moving towards as a species right now, in terms of learning from our mistakes and crafting culture and economy around the idea of what is regenerative. Because what is regenerative within the human body feels good. It promotes health and well-being throughout the body and the systems of the body. What is regenerative in the nervous system, it brings ease and groundedness and balance, and yet access to responsiveness and energy for life. And so the thing is that everything we're doing can be viewed on a scale from degenerative to regenerative, from highly degenerative and destructive to life to highly regenerative and beneficial to life and the systems involved. And I want to give a simple example, some simple examples of our daily lives and practice, which is that we all walk. We all walk, right? Walking is an essential part of a healthy human life. We walk places. We move on our feet from place to place. And there are more and less regenerative ways of walking. If I walk with my head down and my shoulders forward, and I'm locking my knees out with every step, and I'm rigid in my spine, this is a degenerative way of walking. It harms the body by putting undue stress on certain muscles and certain joints, right, in the neck and shoulders. This is degenerative. It's a posture which if you just take a moment to put your head down and exaggerate it a little and pull your shoulders forward, if you exaggerate that posture, you'll feel what you feel when you live inside this degenerative posture, which compresses the lungs, tightens the heart, puts undue stress on the neck and shoulders. It actually pulls all kinds of things down below because it's tensioning the spine, the spinal muscles. And so that's a degenerative and very common on many people have this kind of stooped way of being in the world. Go look around. So a regenerative posture, a regenerative way to walk is to roll your shoulders up and back and then back down so that they're relaxed. You're pulling with your lats down here. Your heart is open and forward. Your head, rather than hanging on the neck, is balanced on the spine. You find an easy balance. Every moment of walking can be this kind of way of finding the ease in the neck, because the head is heavy. It's a heavy thing. It's got a whole bunch of precious material in there. And most people are wasting energy using muscles to hold it up in a way that's actually destructive and harmful to our attitude, to the fullness of our breath, to our sense of engagement with the world. Because when I'm up here, I'm up here. I'm looking around. I'm not looking down at the ground in front of me. I'm right here, up. I see people. I acknowledge people. I'm taking a deeper breath already. My spine is lengthened and it's engaged. So I'm engaging core musculature that allows me to keep a healthy posture and spinal orientation, right? So much better. And now energy is moving through the superhighway of my spine in a much more favorable way, in a more regenerative way. And when I walk like this, it requires my attention. It requires some amount of focus. It requires me to be paying attention to my body and being in my body as I'm moving from one place to another. If I'm stuck in my head and thinking about the past or the future, then I might be embodying that in a degenerative way. But guess what? I can emerge from that. Now, another thing that I want to suggest is a very powerful regenerative way to walk is to sink down. Is to sink down as we walk. Is to drop into every step with a little bounce. To feel our tailbone sinking toward the ground. And to imagine ourselves just kind of moving around about an inch lower than we normally do. What this does is it helps, we relax the hips and let the hips kind of swing back and forth. We are down a little lower, so we're engaging more musculature to walk. We're increasing our sense of buoyancy with this little bounce. And you don't have to bounce, you can walk really smooth this way. But the bounce just kind of helps you feel and relax the muscles that can relax. We never hyperextend our joints, so we never go to the very straightening point of the knee in a walk, in a healthy walk. That doesn't need to happen. That's not regenerative. It actually puts stress, a micro stress on the joint every time we snap that joint to full extension. So just walking, shoulders up, head up, sinking into our steps, sinking into our heel with every step. Breathing more deeply. Just so easy, so full. It's a good feeling. We're sinking and we're breathing and we're relaxed and our head is up and our shoulders are back. Our heart is open. And I want to invite you to just play with this. This is just one place where we can bring some regenerative attention to how we're moving through the world. Because I think we all want to move more regeneratively through the world. We want to activate regenerative coding in our DNA, which helps us to heal faster, right? We all want to be more at ease, more alive in our bodies, more sensitive and alert, and yet more grounded and strong and capable of whatever life throws at us, to receive it and to embrace it, right? This is the regenerative ethic. Everybody has room to grow into more regenerative practices and a way of life, right? We all have room to grow and expand in this direction. And we can all, if we're willing to pay attention, we can all identify degenerative patterns that are bringing us down, that are feeding cycles of exhaustion and tiredness and pinching off essential flow points in our energy meridians. And so, and in our basic spinal fluid. So regeneratively, we open up, we start playing with new patterns, because the regenerative attitude that we take in life is an attitude of curiosity and experiment. That's the most regenerative attitude, to be curious about what's actually happening right now, to be honest and veridical about our perceptions as best we can. Oh, I noticed that my shoulders are slumping. I can do one of two things. I can be like, well, that's just how I'm made. I'll just hunker along. Or, oh, I noticed my shoulders are slumping. Let me just take a deep breath. Oh, roll my shoulders back and down, lengthen my spine through my crown. Find that easy set point for my head to just balance on top of my spine. Sink in my stance a little bit. Oh, that's a regenerative adjustment. Now I'm more sensitized to my body, and I can listen in a little more. What's going on here? And I can start to pay attention to the way my spine is involved in everything I do in this moment. When we see, the thing is, a regenerative attitude doesn't add things to our lives in a certain way. It only helps us to change the way that we're doing what we're already doing toward a more regenerative way of doing it. You're already sitting a lot, probably. And there's a degenerative way of sitting, and there's a regenerative way of sitting. There's a way of sitting which keeps your spine alive, which builds core musculature, strengthens good posture, and helps you to remain alert and creative. Helps your breath to flow more easily, your vitality and your life force to flow more easily into whatever it is that you're sitting to do. Right? You're already doing that. So let that become your practice. Let your sitting become your regenerative practice. You're sitting in a car. You're sitting at a desk. You're sitting watching a movie. How can your sitting become a practice of benefiting your physiology, benefiting your emotional chemistry, and benefiting your clarity and inspiration? How can you let your walking do this? These are just simple places that we are doing something already. And that something that we're already doing has a path from the most degenerative way of doing it to the most regenerative way of doing it. And we're all somewhere in the middle. And when we open the more regenerative capacities, when you cultivate a healthy attitude, when you cultivate a healthy posture, which allows for the blood and the oxygen and the chi, the energy to flow, the electricity to flow through your body, through your nervous system in a proper way, then your body heals faster. It recovers from injury faster. It feeds the immune system and strengthens the immune system's resiliency. And it makes you stronger. It makes you more dynamic and available for life to respond, right? And so this is the regenerative coding in our DNA that gets activated when we fill our moment of sitting or walking or standing with awareness and breath and an awareness, a physiological awareness of our body's orientation in space, and a regenerative attitude of curiosity of how can I make this even more effortless? How can I align with the body's natural organic structure even more, so that what I'm doing, it may actually be harder. It may be more difficult. I may be giving myself an assignment which requires of me some discomfort and some discovery. But if I'm gentle with myself along the way, then I know that I have this pathway that I'm going to break old habit patterns, which are degenerative, which I've been practicing over and over and over again my whole life. So, and I'm going to replace them with a more regenerative pattern. I don't need to do it perfectly, ever. I just need to feel into what's a little better now. What's an improvement I can make in this moment toward a more regenerative posture. Because our posture in life, it's not only physiological, it's spiritual in a sense, right? It's our posture in life. What's your posture in life? Is your posture like this, like not taking up too much space and head down and off balance and kind of tight and worried? Or is your posture grounded, rooted, dynamic, open, curious, and clear? Is your posture in life optimistic, or is it pessimistic? Is it puffed out and exaggerated? Or is it just taking up the fullness of the space that it has available to it within its own sphere of existence, without collapsing and without exaggerating or pushing hard out there somewhere? The regenerative ethic is this balance point between collapse and aggressive projection, right? We don't need to collapse around anything in our lives and just like freeze, and we don't need to fight either. We don't need to freeze, we don't need to fight, we don't need to fawn, and we don't need to just fall victim to our old reactive patterns. Instead, we can pause. Instead of freezing, panicking, or fighting, or running away, that was the fourth one. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. We don't have to do any of those things. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. These are all trauma reactions that tighten and actually make us much less likely to respond regeneratively to something. So we have to feel these attitudes and these postures within our body so that we can cultivate a regenerative attitude, which just sits in its own integrity and moves in its own integrity, moves with health and ease and grace and strength, cultivated through practice. And the practice just makes you feel better over time. You will only feel better over time, slowly and organically, the more you do the regenerative practice. There are some regenerative practices that get you feeling really high, and I can share those. But of course, that's just a state, and it evens out. But the more you weave these practices into your daily life, into your walking, into your sitting, into your lying down, into the way that you work with your hands, into your relationships, the more these regenerative patterns penetrate your life and start to unravel and shift the degenerative patterns which are damaging your physical health and your mental well-being, your emotional health, and your relational and spiritual well-being. These degenerative patterns will unravel in the presence of this regenerative attitude, this regenerative curiosity. How can I enhance myself through the way I do what I'm doing right now? And how can that self-enhancement and that self-love radiate and pour over from me into what I'm doing, so that what I do more regeneratively and beautifully, and my doing of it doesn't damage me, it doesn't harm me, it makes me stronger and more beautiful and more capable of regenerative behavior, right? It's this simple cycle. So this is the magic that's right under our noses all the time, that my life work is to bring into the world in a way that anyone who wishes to play with it can embrace and grasp, and to bring into the world in a way that nobody is denied access to this very beautiful, simple medicine that's already built into your body, and anyone can do anywhere, anytime, right? For lack of money or some other resources. There's no lack of money that can prevent you from learning and joining us for our programs. There's no lack of physical well-being that should stop you. If you're lying in a hospital bed, you can join us for these programs and do what you can do right from where you are to lie there more regeneratively than you were before. If you're a triathlete or an Ironman triathlete, you can integrate your system to be in recovery faster, and you can create ways of training yourself and your system to be even more resilient, to improve your recovery time, to improve your overall, the holistic integrity of your life around this high level of physical fitness, right? If you feel mentally unstable, the amazing thing is that these practices will help you to stabilize yourself mentally and emotionally. They will, by physically stabilizing yourself through a deeper stance, by physically stabilizing yourself through a more supple, alive, and aligned spine, through stabilizing yourself through slower, deeper, gentler breaths. You're stabilizing your emotional reality and your mental reality. You're creating oases of peace, of love and gratitude to anchor into. And the more we anchor into these oases of breath, of slowness, of a physical exploration inside this body that we're always in. We're always here in this body while we're awake and alive. This body's always here now. So we can, wherever we're beginning, financially, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we can enhance our practice by this holistic and coordinated way of being in this contemplation of our physicality and our emotionality and our mentality in relation to this regenerative target or bullseye or balance point. And we can acknowledge where we're collapsed or where we're going too hard and pushing and brittle. Then we can gentle our way back into the middle. This, my friends, is what the Human Thriving Project is for. It's to help all of us to cultivate more regenerative ways of moving through the world. And it starts as very simple actions within our own. It's a revolution within our own bodies and being. It's a revolution to evolve the way that we're embodied in such a way that we have more energy every day. We have a baseline emotional sense of ease and pleasure in our lives. We come back to a baseline of ease and pleasure. We are more strong, physically strong, and more integrated physically, so we harm ourselves less because we're using our body in a more integrated way, right? We have more mental inspiration and clarity because we're cultivating that innocence of spirit and that curiosity, and we're also aligning our body systems in a way that provides the brain with the most oxygen, the most blood, the most chi, and the most sort of buoyancy and opportunity to function at its cognitive zenith. And we're harmonizing all of those layers of our experience. We're harmonizing a physical regenerativeness with an emotional regenerativeness, with a mental regenerativeness, which is regenerative to the whole system of your being. And finally, last but not least, and all the way through, we are cultivating a sense of regenerative spirituality. Our spirit, whatever that means to you, your spirit becomes more buoyant in the presence of love and gratitude. Because love and gratitude are the two spiritual super nutrients of the regenerative movement. Love. Thank you, I love you. Thank you, I love you. Thank you, I love you. Smile and say it with me, and just touch your body as you say it. Thank you, I love you. Thank you. I love you. If it feels inauthentic, notice that, but stay with the practice. Thank you. I love you. Thank you. I love you. Smile. Breathe. Thank you. I love you. 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 Whatever your attention falls upon, the laser of your attention falls upon is just met with gratitude. Thank you. I love you. 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 Yeah. And now notice how you feel. Notice what the sensations are in your body in the presence of all that. Thank you. I love you. All that super nutrient. Notice the emotional tonality as you just engaged in not even a full minute of thank you, I love you. Maybe a minute. Feel that super nutrient. Let your mind dance and sparkle with it. It is so simple. So simple. So easy. So pleasurable. Even though it's a little uncomfortable and you have to get through resistances and this identity that is not used to doing this new thing and is kind of bad at it and doesn't know what it's doing and doesn't want to feel incompetent. You have to move through those emotional resistances, those physiological resistances to enter into the stream of the regenerative practice. That process is built in. That's what's uncomfortable. As one of my teachers says, pushing the wheelbarrow is really easy. Thinking about pushing the wheelbarrow is very difficult. Just trying it, just doing it, just getting out of your own way and dropping into the practice is the hardest part. It's way harder than any push-ups you've ever done. If you've done push-ups, we do a lot of push-ups in this practice for all the right reasons. Real slow and real careful and full of breath, feeling every bit of sensation. We must meet our resistances and the tendency, a body in motion stays in motion, this tendency to keep doing what we've been doing because it's more comfortable. Well, if what you've been doing has delivered you to the zenith of your regenerative thriving, then keep doing it. Keep exploring. But if what you've been doing has led you to a body that feels tired and carrying excess weight or being underweight and feeling weak, if it's led you to feeling depressed, if it's led you to feeling overwhelmed mentally and scattered, if it's led you to relationships that are degenerated and not and full of conflict and tension or hidden tension or whatever, if your practice of being the way you are has led you there, then you have an opportunity to explore something that's going to bring you into a more regenerative space. But all of those habits have momentum behind them. You, on some level, want to keep doing them even though they're not serving you. So we learn how to shake. Part of one of the essential core practices of the regenerative practice is just this shaking. We shake out the tension. We use our voice in a more organic, self-assured way, honest, emotionally honest way. Not at anybody, just out into the world. We feel what we feel. But this tremor is an essential nervous system calibrator, equalizer, regulator. When we are able to move through that tension of being, that momentum and that sort of control of the mind, of trying to control who we are to keep it in this familiar territory of what we already know, when we're willing to move through that and see that resistance for what it is and play into awkwardly, foolishly, as a learner, as a beginner, play into something new, play into a new pattern. Even if you've done this before, I've done this thousands of times, and I never know what pattern is going to emerge out of my body, and it's this time. Once you take off into the practice of listening and learning how to listen to your body in this way, and listen to the organic structure of the body, and find all these circles and waves inside of your body, it's never the same way twice. You've never done it before. Every time, you're just discovering. I'm continuously discovering new patterns inside of my body, new ways of working. Some of them I catalog and hold on to be able to teach, and some I just watch happen. But our lives can be defined in a certain way by the limitedness of our physical movement through the world, and the relative limitedness of the patterns that we physically do. When we're babies, we don't have programming on our patterns. We're just discovering all the time. Babies do like 35,000 movements in a day, distinct movements. By the time you're an adult, you're doing like 500. From 35,000 to 500 distinct movements a day. And I think we can do better as adults if we're willing to become like children again. If we're willing to learn something brand new in a place that we already feel really competent, we already know how to do it. If we're willing to just be a beginner again, walking, be a beginner sitting, be a beginner again at everything you do, that activates the regenerative coding in the DNA that was alive when we were children, and that healed wounds way faster, that built a whole body from basically a tiny egg and a tiny sperm, right? The genetic intelligence that can build a brand new one of us that lives inside every molecule of DNA in our bodies. It responds to our attitude and our playfulness, our willingness to learn, and it turns on in a way that allows for that more regenerative healing process to take place. We don't know how much younger our skin can get. I've only been doing this a little while, a few years. I've been building up to this practice for decades, almost 3 decades. And I'm now just to the point where I get to share something of an integral system with the world after all of my discovery process. And it's very exciting. And the most regenerative way for me to share it with the world is to give it away. I don't want to charge people for something that I want them to have because it's going to make their lives better. I just want to be able to live in a sustainable way in my life, to have a home and to have all of the things that I actually need, relatively simple life, and the wherewithal to travel, to share this medicine with people. And I want to just give it away. That's the most regenerative thing to do. And there, within the Human Thriving Project, there'll be tiers of commitment within. It's an organization. If you would like to learn, just join, and it's free. You don't have to pay anything. And the only way to unlock deeper levels of the practices and deeper levels of the community is to actually show up for the practice consistently and check in. And then you grow and are welcomed into these other intermediate and advanced levels of the practice. But you can't buy your way in there. Nobody can buy their way in, and nobody can say they can't afford it. That's regenerative. That's equitable. Really, truly, because you're only going to get as much. You can't get any benefit from sitting here watching this video. Maybe a tiny bit. But the benefit starts when you get up and you start doing weird stuff with your body. When you actually just follow the instructions. Just let yourself be like a child following along with the adventure and doing what is invited and trying it out in a way that doesn't push yourself, make it hard, and doesn't collapse and I can't. But just yeah, okay, I'll try it my way. I'll try the way I can do this. We're cultivating regenerativity. And when we do that within our own bodies, then we are much more suited to cultivate that in our relationships. We're much more suited to cultivate that in our families, with our beloved. When I am more regeneratively attuned to myself and giving myself self-love and treating myself like I love myself, walking like I love myself, sitting like I love myself, lying down like I love myself, working like I love myself, driving like I love myself, breathing like I love myself, then I'm also relating like I love myself and am responsible for myself first and foremost. And I'm able to be that more regenerative participant in a in a relationship, in a system that includes two whole human beings. Oh, that's one system. From a regenerative perspective, from a holistic perspective, we see that the we of two people is a whole of a certain kind. And we must look at that whole as a whole, and we must understand the parts of the whole and how they dance with each other, how they relate and influence each other, how they affect each other. What is taking the lead inside or outside, inside that whole of two, and what is taking the follow, and what it means to shift who's leading and who's following, until we have this sense of this we in coordination, in beauty and exquisite collaboration, right? Our hands are the perfect metaphor for the we that we can cultivate between ourself and another person. And every single relationship is one of these beings. It's a whole being. It's a system. Every one of your relationships is a being from a holistic perspective. And when we're more regeneratively activated within our singular individual being, then we are also more regeneratively participating in our relational beings. We're nourishing our relationships through honesty, through loving honesty and deep listening and understanding. And this is available to everybody. I've never met anybody who is past the point of needing to, of there being room to grow. I just haven't. And I meet a lot of people who I can see. I can visually see it with my eyes. I can sense it in them emotionally. I can hear it in the tone of their voice and in the quality of their words. That people, so many of us are stuck in degenerative patterns that we don't even know are there because they're so familiar. And to be invited out of that degenerative pattern feels like a threat to the pattern, feels like a threat to my identity. And so to be willing to admit, like each of us, to ourselves first, yeah, I harbor shadows. I'm still running patterns that are that are damaging to my own well-being. And then if they're damaging to me, then they're also damaging to the people around me. That's true about all of us. And there's a sure path that doesn't require us to like focus really hard on fixing anything, to making all of those things better. And it's a regenerative path that practices into the body's ease, structure, breath, and coherence. This inquiry into coherence, this regenerative inquiry into dynamic, relaxed, grounded coherence will improve every dimension of our lives. And the more we practice into it in the dojo, when we go in and we're learning about these practices and we're spending like 90 minutes focusing on trying out these practices and moving into states of like deep discomfort, deep stances and different things that are bringing us up against our resistances, you know, we're feeling into all these layers in our emotions and expressing them. In the container, in the cauldron of the dojo, the more we cultivate that ability in the dojo, the easier it is to bring it out into our lives and to embody it in the moments we need it the most. When life brings us an angry person or a challenging situation, then we don't have to yell at anybody or project out because we've cultivated that like responsiveness and that strong base and that readiness to respond with an open heart, to not collapse in the presence of it and to not aggress in the presence of it, but just to be ready. Because it's a posture of life that we cultivate, a regenerative posture that says you and me working together can always achieve more than you and me fighting each other for an illusory form of scarcity. You and me working together can always achieve more than you and me fighting each other on behalf of life. Yeah, things working together in harmony, people working together in harmony can always achieve more than people fighting each other because there's already enough of everything we need. That is not only a physical, empirical fact, but it is an attitude. And that fact and that attitude, when we hold them together, utterly change our lives. The fact and the attitude that there is already enough for everybody to have what they need. It's already here. We got it already. We don't know how quite to distribute it yet. We haven't figured out how to distribute it in a way that everybody's needs are getting better met. But there's a way from here to there, and there's already enough of everything. So how do we work together to create more for everyone of what they actually need? This is the regenerative attitude that we take into every conversation. We're not competing ever for anything. That's insanity. It's degenerative to every part of our systems of life. Starting right here in the human body, competing. The mind competing with the body. The mind trying to control the body to do things. The mind controlling the heart. Heart and mind competing to see who decides. So much of that. Every time you get an inspiration, like, oh, this, yes. And then the mind is like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And you listen to that's the fight of the mind and the heart. But I really love, yeah, but I don't know. You can't guarantee that. The statistics say, that's the fight. But the regenerative interior is a counsel between the belly, the heart, and the mind. Right? We're right here in the world, collaborating, listening to our bodies, letting our bodies tell us things about what's going on in the field, and when we're engaging with somebody, letting our bodies give us information about them. Your body, you're feeling all kinds of things that aren't, quote, yours all the time. Because we're a we, and things circulate through our we. We just have our own version of that and the stories we make up about those feelings. But when we bring a regenerative attitude into the space, then we're self-assured because we don't have an agenda. We're just here to collaborate. We're just here to make something wonderful happen together. And we all have our role in that tonight. This is why regenerative practice for teams and organizations is absolutely super nutrient. When people are physiologically, emotionally, and mentally in equilibrium with themselves, then, and when people are aware that we, our team, our organism has a healthy regenerative equilibrium that it can function at, and it can also have a degenerative baseline that it can fall into in either collapse or hyperdrive. When we recognize that all teams have a regenerative balance point, and we learn to nourish our teams by taking moments throughout the day for regenerative practice, just to tune up a little bit. And we take time in our week, in the rhythm of our week, to pause and slow down and practice regenerative forms of communication with one another so that we can become better listeners and also more precise communicators of what matters most to us, so that we can get better at asking concretely for what we want instead of resenting people for not giving it to us or demanding it from them. We could become more wonderful stewards of our community and our we by developing healthier communication, movement, and coherence strategies. And when teams are more coherent, when teams trust each other more, when teams invest, just like when I invest that time that I need in going to the gym every day in some way, when I invest my energy in a personal self-care practice that grounds me in my regenerative attitudes, movements, and feelings and intentions, I'm a better person. I'm improved in my capacity to perform. Just so, when you take a whole team who is collectively now given support in the organization to practice a more regenerative way, is working out on the regs as a team, that team is going to function way better. And you don't have to do a big 3-day retreat somewhere. This is stuff, maybe we could start there if you want to really infuse it, but you don't have to go hard. Just little by little, we can infuse the organization with these little practices that build on one another. Create a culture where it's normal to wiggle in your chair, because that's how you actually keep your spine alive through a day of sitting. Everybody knows that. Everybody celebrates and is reminded, oh shoots, they're wiggling. I forgot to wiggle. And then it becomes a whole viral phenomena. You can spread regenerative attitudes and movements and awareness. Take a deep breath somewhere. Anywhere in the world, take a deep breath where people aren't breathing. And then listen. And I guarantee you, at least one other person in that space is going to take a deep breath. They might not sigh as audibly, but at least one other person. This is the simplest essence of the regenerative ethic. I take a deep breath for me. But I take that deep breath for me, knowing that my breath for me benefits everyone. Because the most regeneratively fit Joshua is the best for his community, is the best version for his family and his animals and his creative work. And every loving and grateful breath that I take just fills my cup a little bit. a little bit. Every one of those that I take. And all the panting and all the unconscious and all the bad posture, it drains my cup. Degenerative practice drains my cup of the mana, the vitality. But all the regenerative practices fill the cup. They leave you more full than you were before. Even though you may go through an intensive 90-minute practice workout that leaves you tired out in some way and sore the next day. Yeah, that's regenerative. That's literally the definition of regenerative. You're tearing down old musculature and you're rebuilding it stronger and more resilient. And that's what we do in our teams. That's why in the most regenerative teams, there is a very clear path to bringing up grievances and participating in reconciliatory conflict resolution processes. That in every regenerative team, we value the tensions that arise in the group and we bring them to the surface as soon as we can, and we address them in the most regenerative and restorative way possible, because that's our muscles growing as a team. That's our teamwork muscles growing. That's us tearing down old habits that aren't serving and rebuilding with something better. And there's a very specific step-by-step process that I've developed over the last 25 years that does just that. And there's a large process and a large arc that can be used for bigger issues, and that teaches people how to micro repair so that we don't walk away from an interaction where something off happened and we don't address it in a regenerative way. Can I be honest with you for a moment? I noticed a contraction in me when I heard you say, get that to my desk by tomorrow, with a strong tone. And I noticed that there's a feeling of resistance in my being and a need to be seen and respected in this moment that's not being met for me. And I want to deliver to you what you're asking for, and I wonder if we can just take a moment to pause and breathe with this and have you reflect back what you're hearing me say. We clean up that funky interaction right then and there. We don't let it linger and drag and put more and more and drag around all these interactions that we've had with our coworkers and collaborators that weren't enjoyable, that left us contracted or having a judgment in our mind. And so this is how we take this very simple regenerative pathway, this regenerative litmus from our own personal internal experience to the experience in our partnerships, to the experience in our teams. And it just keeps going out and out from there. And I'll leave some of the bigger versions to other videos. But I think this has been a really fundamental exploration here of developing a holistic reference and a regenerative reference point. The holistic reference looks at systems within systems within systems within systems and sees every system as embedded within a larger system, just like the cells of my body belong to a whole in itself. But then this body belongs within an ecosystem, right? And that ecosystem belongs within a planet, and that planet belongs within a solar system, right? And so everything there are nested holes, and just because we can't see past a certain sort of layer doesn't mean it's not there. Just because we can't see a certain frequency of light doesn't mean it's not there, right? So we have to concede that we're seeing a fraction of what's actually happening in any direction in a holistic frame of reference. And then we apply the regenerative attitude. What's going to be the win-win-win-win-win? Because we can't keep taking from our ecosystems to live at a level of absurd excess in things that we don't actually need if we're going to pass on healthy soil and a healthy culture to our grandchildren. We can't do that. There's no way we can continue to do what we're doing collectively and deliver healthy soil, healthy clean water, clean air, and a peaceful international collaborative venture to our generations to come. And that's the only reason I'm here. The only reason I'm here is to pass on something more beautiful, is to make this that I have inherited more beautiful. That's my purpose. And it becomes more beautiful when it becomes healthier and better for life itself. And so we cultivate the things that are just a little better for life right here in the intimate territory of our own posture, our own mind, our own emotional experience. And we embrace practices which help us to integrate our lives at this level until we ourselves personally are feeling a level of inner resourcedness to be able to extend that regenerative enhancement and overflow that into the world organically, naturally, easily. So thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me around this. And I hope to have more conversations like this with you soon. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.